Well, hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the host of the Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. I am also the founder and lead investigator with Deep Woods Paranormal. My wife and I investigate everything paranormal, be it Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids, strange lights, lake monsters, river monsters. If it's paranormal in nature, we investigate it. We also help people in their homes. We do not charge for our services. If you're looking at the lighting, it is a little bit different. It's a little harder to see, but I've changed the lighting so it's a little bit more above me. I'm trying to get rid of the glare from the window, but there just doesn't seem to be any way to get rid of it. My face is a little bit more lit up, so you guys can see me a little bit better. Anyways, today we're going to talk about some cryptids. Lake monsters being cryptids, and it's one of my favorite cryptids I like to talk about. A lot of people have asked me, hey, what's your favorite cryptid? Probably Bigfoot, but Dogman, Lizardman, all those things fascinate me. Mothman, almost every cryptid fascinates me. So you can kind of see the Lock Ness Monster down the left corner here. I don't know what this thing is. This is Dogman here. This is possibly Lizardman or El Chupacabra. And of course, right here, you possibly have a Bigfoot. So anyways, let's share my screen and we'll go ahead and get into this. Just a disclaimer. These videos, if you see any videos on here on any of our podcasts, unless I specifically say they're ours, they're not ours. We are sharing other people's videos. We are giving them credit down below. If you guys want to go check out their stuff or visit these sites, the links will be at the very bottom of the description. Our links are up at top to our YouTube page, which you might already be on if you're not listening. If you're not watching this, you might be on the audio podcast, listening to the audio podcast. If you'd like to view the podcast, feel free to go onto the website. Our website, it has both our YouTube channel, has our audio podcasts, and it has a whole lot more. I'm going to talk about Manscaped real quick. This thing, it loves to block this out. Okay. Even when it's in there, it's not in there. Okay. Let me move the mic just a little bit. All right. So I talked about this yesterday. I'm going to talk about it again. Let me turn it the other way. This is called Manscaped. This is from manscaped.com. Of course, the link's down below. It's called Crop Preserver. And essentially what this product does, I'm supposed to hold this up. Essentially what this product does, you can see the whole bottle. It's a nice little bottle. Don't need a whole lot to essentially cover down there. It can work for women too, just FYI. This is on manscaped.com. If you go on there, put in the discount code DWP, and you'll get a discount on anything you buy. So they send us a whole lot of stuff. I'm just talking kind of about Crop Preserver this week. It's kind of like a deodorant for down there. It works really, really well. I'm really happy with it. Because I work long hours. I work sometimes 12, 13, 14 hours a day before I can catch a shower. And so, this stuff's nice. It keeps me clean and dry down there, and then also keeps me not smelling terrible. I'm trying to keep that G-rated. Anyways, let's get into the cryptid creatures. So let's talk about these guys. These are different. I'm going to share my screen with you, I think. All right, this is our YouTube channel. We just uploaded the Bigfoot only podcast yesterday. I'm going to put this mic back in front of me so you can hear me. One thing I do need to do in case there's some volume with these videos, I'm going to turn the audio back up. I apologize. For some reason yesterday, the Bigfoot podcast, the audio, when that one scream happened, didn't come through. Everything else came through, but the scream. So strange. So anyways, all right, we didn't come here to see our Deep Woods Paranormal page. We came here to see some cryptids. So let's talk about some cryptids. And everybody knows I have a thing for the Lock Ness Monster. Excuse me as I rub my eyes real quick here. The Lock Ness Monster has always fascinated me. As a kid, I saw stories about it back in the early 80s growing up. We had all those shows, that were basically they were kind of real almost. They didn't really hide a whole lot. They weren't trying to prove or disprove anything. They were just showing you, here's the story. You know what I mean? And that's what I liked about those old shows. It's been on Monster Quest. It's been on Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings and a few other shows back in those days. Nowadays, I mean, things are a little bit different. They try and glorify the creature and make it look like it's more real than maybe it is. So again, you got to take this with a grain of salt. All of these creatures I'm about to talk about, I've never personally seen one. Okay, so but I've been to Loch Ness, and I found it fascinating that the lock next to the ocean. So maybe these things aren't always in the locks. Maybe sometimes they swim out into the ocean and then come back in. Now, up in Alaska, in the ocean, they report a Nessie-like creature that basically will steal fishermen's catch and stuff like that. So we'll get into that too. That's another thing that really interests me. I want to do some research on it before I go starting to talk about it. But I've actually had the pleasure of going to Loch Ness, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. So the Loch Ness is actually in Scotland. The Loch Ness Monster, by named Nessie, large marine creature believed by some people to inhabit Loch Ness Monster in Scotland. However, much of the alleged evidence supporting its existence has been discredited and is widely thought that the monster is a myth. And I can't, again, I'm not here to say it's real or it's not. You guys have to make up your own minds as to what you think. Again, the links will all these links to these pages I'm going to will be at the very bottom. The links up top are to our stuff, like our audio podcast, our paranormal, our deepwoodsparanormal.com, which is our page. You can find not only the podcast, you can find our YouTube channel there. It's basically a one-stop shop. And then our expeditions and our ghost hunts, our public ghost hunts and public expeditions will also be there if you want to check that out. And then links to our other social medias. And then also my contact information is in there. Both my cell phone number and my email address are in there. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, we'd love to have you. Have you seen Loch Ness Monster? Have you seen any of the cryptids I'm going to talk about? There's supposedly 37 lakes that have Loch Ness Monster-like creatures. And we'll get into that a little bit more here and later. But, maybe on the next podcast or whatever, if people really like this podcast. This is only going to be basically lake monsters and river monsters. So let's continue. Reports of a monster inhabiting Loch Ness date back to ancient times. I can't talk today. Notably, local stone carvings by the Pict, P-I-C-T, depict a mysterious beast with flippers. The first written account appears back in the 17th century biography of St. Columba. According to that work, in 565 A.D., the monster bit a swimmer and was preparing to attack another man when Columba intervened, ordering the beast to go back. It obeyed, and over the centuries, only occasional sightings were reported. Many of these alleged encounters seemed inspired by Scottish folklore, which abounds with mythological water creatures. Okay, hold on, let me get a quick drink here. Sorry, my mouth is really dry. It's making it hard to talk. All right, so they're saying it basically is some kind of Scottish folklore. I've seen things on this. I saw a little documentary on this. And Columbia was basically like a religious person. I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to bring that onto this channel. But he came to the shores and he held up his arms and said, "You need to leave." And basically the creature left. So that's just the myth or the legend or whatever you want to call it. It says, in 1933, the Loch Ness Monster's legend began to grow. At the time, a road adjacent to Loch Ness Monster was finished, offering an unobstructed view of the lake. And I've driven on this. You can see it all the way around. This lake is extremely deep. and things do kind of bubble up to the surface. I've seen people both try to give Nessie credit, and I've also seen people try and debunk, and both sides are pretty interesting to me. Um, could it be a log floating on the surface? Maybe. I mean, it's hard to see, especially if you're way out on the road and this thing's floating like the middle of the lake. It's really hard to see. There are good sized waves that basically form on the water. I've been to the castle near it, and we looked out for a long time. I had a long lens camera. I had 7300 lens on, and I kind of scanned around in different places where the monster's been seen. I didn't see anything. So who knows? Like I said, the loch does go to the ocean, and there's been other marine animals that have come in from the ocean into the nest and then left. So, to say it basically it can happen is again kind of narrow-minded, but I don't know. You have to, like I said, you have to make up your own mind. I'm not 100% sold that it's real. It is kind of a cool idea that maybe some kind of prehistoric animal or dinosaur maybe still is in these lakes. Wouldn't want to meet it in person, but I do think it's kind of interesting. Okay. Let's see. In 1933, the Loch Ness Monster's legends began to grow at the time. Okay, I read all that. In late April, a couple saw an enormous animal, which they compared to a dragon or prehistoric monster. After it crossed their car's path, it disappeared into the water. The incident was reported in a Scottish newspaper, and numerous sightings followed. In December of 1933, the Daily Mail commissioned Madame Marmaduke Wetherall, a big game hunter, to locate the sea serpent. Along the shores, he found large footprints that he believed belonged to a very powerful, soft-footed animal about 20 feet or 6 meters long. However, upon closer inspection, zoologists at the National History Museum determined that the tracks were identical and made with an umbrella that's umbrella stand or ashtray that had a hippopotamus leg or base. So basically, they don't know if he faked it or didn't fake it at this point. He was basically discredited, unfortunately, and that's why you have to be so careful with evidence you put out there. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to create a hoax because of all the technology, and you can make stamps of not only these kind of footprints, but you can make Bigfoot ones and lizard ones, and you can do all kinds of stuff. So you have to be really careful. That's why I like Cliff and the other doctor that studies footprints. They're both pretty much scientists, and they know what's real. They know what's fake. All right, so in 1934, an English physician, Robert Kenneth Wilson, photographed the alleged creature. The iconic image known as the surgeon's photograph appeared to show the monster's small head and neck. Basically, was printed in the Daily Mail, and they basically speculated that it was a creature. The creature was a plesiosaur, a marine reptile that went extinct some 65.5 million years ago. Now, again, I talked about this yesterday in the Bigfoot podcast. They found other animals like fish and other things and different animals out there, different species of animal that they thought had gone extinct a long time ago, but they found them alive today. So to say that this creature still couldn't be around is a little bit of it's narrow-minded. So basically, let's move on. I want to see. Okay, here. I want to show you this picture. Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, it does come up. All right. So if you're watching the podcast, this is like an old castle that's in ruins along the lake. I've actually been up here. I've been up here And I've been able to look out over this section of Loch Ness, and it's beautiful. And essentially, this is looking at it from the other direction from another bank. You can see the castle kind of ruins in the distance, but you can see how big this lake is. It's massive. It's not small, and it goes on for a long period of time. So let's move on. Okay, so let me see if this will blow up. Nope, doesn't. This is the surgeon's photo. This was taken in 1934. You can see the neck. You can kind of see the head. You can see it looks like a little bit of a hump, and then basically the back portion. Now they say this is revealed to be a fake. Supposedly, he put a submarine and basically the head of a like a plesiosaur on the top of this little submarine and was kind of pushing it around, and basically then took a picture of it and claimed it to be a Loch Ness Monster. But essentially, they say they debunked it. I don't know if he ever said, "Hey, no, it's fake." But anyways, they also think that the Loch Ness Monster could be giant eels, and I talked about that the other day. Here's a picture of a plesiosaur with a long neck, the flippers, the 4 flippers, and then the tail in the middle of the body. There's only one hump on this one. A lot of people report seeing multiple humps, and they report the monster being a blackish color. So I don't know. Could it be a giant eel? Yes, it could. Could it be just nothing? That's very true too. Again, you guys have to make up your own minds as to what you think. This gentleman took some water samples. I know when they were doing an expedition, like a scientific expedition of Loch Ness, they were doing sonar, and they lined up several boats, like 30 boats all the way across the lake, and they were all shooting sonar down at the same time, going across the lake. And at one point, they got a hit on something that basically they couldn't find again. So it was a very large creature, and there's caves in the lake, in the loch, where monsters can hide, where things can go swim into. So they're saying that the creature hides out in the caves when boats go by or whatever. So let's see if there's anything else interesting. This is a drawing that somebody did, and of course there's been a couple movies. This is way back in the day of the Loch Ness Monster. It's pretty funny looking. And then of course the surgeon's picture. And then they're showing pictures of elephants with their trunks out. What a lot of people don't know is elephants can actually swim in water above their heads. They basically kind of float, and they just move their legs back and forth like a dog would, almost like a dog paddle, and they keep their trunks up out of the water so they can breathe. And I've never actually seen a video of it, but it's pretty interesting. So what I like about this one, okay, so here's the island of Scotland. Here's the loch here. Here's Inverness. This is where I went to, and essentially, it there's ways to get out of here. You can't see it real clear here, but there's actually channels that go out into the ocean over here. So that's pretty interesting. Again, that's a picture of the castle. There's not really much here. So that's kind of my take on the Loch Ness Monster. Could it be real? Could it be? Is it fake? I don't know. I can't tell you yes or no. I just think it's interesting. I think it'd be cool if one day somebody actually gets a real good video of it, maybe out of the water. That's another thing. If that couple from the 1934 that saw it when they were driving down the highway, walking across down the bank on into the water, that could mean it also comes up onto water, out of the water onto land. And now, it's a little bit more commercialized. It's a little bit more, there's a lot more homes probably out in that area. So for someone like that to climb up out of the water, it probably gets seen pretty easy. But back in those days, it wouldn't have. Okay. Let's talk about another famous lake monster. This says evidence of chance, an overview of Lake Champlain's most famous sighting. So this is a video. I have not watched this. Let's watch this together. Hopefully you can hear this.
There have been various champ sightings, and there's different pictures that people have gotten. People have a lot of different theories about what champ could be, but essentially, it's the sea monster living in Lake Champlain. From looking at Echo,
Whoa.
champ comes up a lot. You get the people who are less fun about it and are just like, it doesn't exist. Then you get the like, oh, my sister saw it, or my coworker saw champ. Some people think that when there are champ sightings, then the person is actually seeing a sturgeon because they fit the bill of kind of looking like a sea monster. The ones that we have at Echo are 4 or 5 feet long, maybe, but they can get as big as like 20 feet. I don't know what species champ would be. I think it's mostly just fun. It being a nice thing about living in Burlington or anywhere along Lake Champlain. Part of the fun of having the champ myth is that you get people to think more about the lake that we all live so close to, and that sort of invites you to think more about like, how do we take care of the lake, and like, oh, what's this type of fish, how do we make sure that it's safe and doesn't become endangered.
So I'm going to interrupt her real quick. They're talking about the sturgeon. And if you don't know what a sturgeon is, it is a prehistoric fish that is still around from the dinosaur age-ish. Sturgeons are silvery gray in color. They've got a very bony body. They have like protection all the way back from their head, where their gills is, all the way to their tail. They've got a hard outer shell, and essentially they can get anywhere from 8 to 20 or 30. I guess somebody actually saw one that was 30 feet. I don't know if that's ever been proven, but so I apologize for all the noise a second ago. Something decided to push my light off the top of where it was into the blinds and knock a few other things over while we were talking. So I wish the camera was pointed the other way because we would have seen that fall. That could be paranormal in nature. Somebody's trying to get my attention. Probably because the dogs want in and they're scratching at the window. I'm sorry if you can hear that too. But normally they're in when I'm doing the podcast. Now they want in. So, all right, let's keep going.
And so I think just saying like, champ isn't real, it's kind of besides the point. It's fun to have the myth, even if he's just some big fish. There's still like the t-shirts and champ's birthday and like the stuffed animals.
Okay. So she's not really talking about anything important. I thought she was going to talk about something, about the science behind champ. But so let's start here. It says, is there a prehistoric serpent monster lurking in the depths of Lake Champlain? Over the centuries, there have been over 300 alleged sightings of the Lake Champlain monster known as Champ. According to an article by the New England Historical Society, cryptozoologist Nick Venzula estimates that the number to be closer to 600. Venezuela was recently featured in Lake Champlain Monster, an episode of the CW network TV show Mysteries Decoded that explores the legend of Champ that aired August 10th. Here are some of the most famous Champ sightings. Okay, so let's start here. On July 5th, 1977, Bristol resident Sandra Massey was trying to have a peaceful vacation with her family. Resting on the shore of Lake Champlain, Mancini was watching her kids splash around in the water as she noticed a creature emerge above the lake's surface. According to a 2003 interview by the Burlington Free Press, I remember seeing this. I think I saw some kind of dinosaur that day, she said. It wasn't a fish. No fish can hold itself up 6 to 8 feet out of the water. Before the creature disappeared below the water's surface, she took a picture. She took out her Kodak and stomach and captured a possible photo of Chance. The photo is blurry, but definitely shows something serpent-like floating on the surface of the lake, it says. The image was analyzed by University of Arizona Optical Science Center, which confirms that the photo had not been tampered with, but could not identify the subject captured in the photo, according to a 1981 New York Times article. Since then, others have claimed to capture photographic evidence of Champ, including the 2005 video of a mysterious large ripples in the lake taken by Charlotte's Peter Baudet. Still, Manessi's photo has remained one of the most intriguing and controversial arguments of Chance's existence yet. So, they say that Chance is older than the Lock Ness Monster. Let's see. Champ is sometimes referred to as America's Loch Ness Monster, but its legendary legend predates that of the Scottish serpent, according to a 2012 book by historian Robert Bartholomew. Between 1870 and 1930s, the most famous lake serpent in the world was Champ, the Champlain monster. According to his articles, accounts of his antics were reprinted in hundreds of newspapers across the country and across the world. Let's see. In the year 1973 was a particularly busy year for Champ. That August, a Burlington marble mill worker named J.P. Farmer told the Burlington Free Press he saw a marine monster while fishing in the Shelbourne Bay. Farmer described the monster as an animal with a brownish body, seemingly from 12 to 15 feet in length, and having a large head shaped like a bull's pouts. I don't know what that means. Kind of like a snout, I guess. So the same year, Champ was reported spotted by railroad workers, the Clinton County Sheriffs, and the tourist board, the steamship, the W.B. Eddy, who claimed they were nearly knocked overboard by the lake monster. And according to a 2017 article by the Ardenbach's newspaper, Sun County News, these sightings of These sightings caught the interest of P.T. Barnum, the founder of the Barnum and Bailey Circus, who in August 1873 posted a bounty of $50,000 for the hide of the great Champlain monster in the New York paper. So let me just read through these. So a lot of people just think it's a serpent. Somebody washing their feet. It's gross. All right, let's keep going. So there's other lake monsters. Here's a lake monster in Georgia that supposedly washed up. Let's watch this video. And again, you guys can make up your own minds as to what you think about these things. I'm just basically sharing this with you and enjoying this, and I'm hoping you guys are having a good time listening to me jaw about this.
20, Wolf Island, Georgia. News breaks that a man named Jeff Warren has come across something extraordinary on the beach. Fortunately, he had his phone to record it. Take a good look. The video shows what looks like an odd, washed-up carcass. There appear to be some entrails nearby as if something took a bite out of it. To the rear, there was a long tail, maybe to help propulsion in the water. On the left side, we see what appears to be a flipper, and most interesting, what looks like a long, slender neck with a small reptilian head. So what is it?
In and around the town of Darien, Georgia, and the Altamaha River, there have been accounts of a mysterious monster.
So this is Ken Gerhardt. He is a very famous cryptid hunter and researcher, and he's basically giving an interview about this monster now. So this is really interesting. He's very credible. And let's just take a listen.
Known as the Altamaha. It's typically described as a plesiosaurian type of animal. And like this creature, it fits well into the paradigm of other lake monsters and sea serpents around the world.
Okay, so if you guys want to watch
A
that,
house or a laptop?
sorry, an ad came on. If you guys want to watch this video, again, the link will be down below for you guys at the very bottom. You guys come on here and make up your own mind. What is that thing? I have no idea. It kind of looks like, plesiosaur, but it's missing the back fin. You couldn't see if it had fins towards the back of its body. It also looked kind of small, so maybe it was a baby. Who knows? It could have been anything else too. It could have been something else that we just don't know. A lot of the time, things happen when things die in the ocean or in the lake. They tend to bloat. They tend to, get distorted by what am I trying to say? They get distorted as they basically continue to. I can't think of the dang word. It's in my head, but I can't say it. Anyways, so as they continue to, their carcass continues to rot, they will continue to kind of bloat and change. And then as they're being eaten, different things. Hopefully somebody in the science community grabbed it, the carcass, and took it and studied it. And, maybe there's some answers out there, but they're not really sharing it at this point in time. It's kind of like Bigfoot or any other cryptid or anything else. It's remains hush hush and stuff. So anyways, let's keep going. So this is the Lake Pepie monster. It says it fires up people's imaginations and locals' economies. And again, I mean, if you go to any of these places where these creatures have said to be found, of course, there's all kinds of dolls and T-shirts and hats and statues and everything supporting these creatures because it does help the local economy. And it's kind of fun to think that maybe they do exist. And I'm not saying they do, but I'm just saying it's kind of fun to enjoy the thought that maybe some kind of prehistoric animal still exists out there today. So let's get into this. It says, now that the ice has melted off of Lake Pepie, Larry Nelson wants to remind people there's something lurking in the blue-gearing waters, and he's willing to pay you to prove it exists. So basically, he's got a reward out for this monster. It says, located on the Mississippi River, Lake Pepie is bordered by Wisconsin on one side and Minnesota on the other. In the town of Lake City, Minnesota, population of just under 5,300. It's basically on the shores of Lake Pepie. Tales of monsters in the lake have been floating around since 1870s. So that's interesting. Supposedly a large serpent-like creature, the monster, or Pepie, as locals call it, has been seen by everyone from Dakota Indians to local vacationers. Now, Nelson, the owner of a 125 passenger paddle wheel boat, let me try that again. Now, Nelson, the owner of the 125 passenger paddle wheel boat Pearl of the Lake and president of the Lake City Tourism Bureau, is reminding people that there's a $50,000 reward to anyone who can prove Pepie exists. Nelson said he didn't know the water serpent existed until he saw the creature a few years back. So he's actually seen one. One night, my wife and I were out on Lake Pepie, and there were no other boats out there with us, he said. All of a sudden, I saw a big wake out there against the current. It was about 100 feet long and a foot and a half high. So I started doing some research, and this is when I heard about Pepie. So essentially, that's what a lot of stories for these lake monsters, especially like Loch Ness. You have something pushing against the current. That's why they're saying that it's not a log or it's not whatever. Usually, if there's a log floating out there, it's going to float with the surface. It's going to, if the wind's blowing one way, it's going to go that direction. These things have been seen going against the wind up the current. So that's interesting. Okay, so it says, according to Chad Lewis, a cryptozoologist, researcher, and author of Pepie, the lake monster of Mississippi River, reports that Pepie stretches back to the Dakota Indians. When the Dakota lived in Mississippi area, they decided to trade their birch bark canoes for thicker dugout canoes when traveling Lake Pepin in order to protect themselves from the creature living in the lake that punctured their thinner birch canoes. While stories of the lake monster died off in the 1930s and 40s, since the beginning of the 2000s, more people have reported seeing Pepie, Lewis said. Lewis said he's not surprised that a monster could live in the large lake, given its similarity to another alleged monster inhabiting a body of water, Loch Ness. Now, there are Loch Ness itself is basically, it's a fault zone. Basically, what happened was a glacier melted and filled the fault up with water, and it's extremely deep. I don't know exactly how deep. You can look it up if you're interested. But there's, like I said before, I think there's 36 or 37 lakes that are just like this. Some are actually connected to the ocean, some are not. But like I said, if you guys want to know more about this, leave a comment down below and we'll take a deeper dive into this. I'm trying to keep my podcast between half an hour and an hour, because after that long, usually we lose people. Actually, after about 5 minutes, we lose people. But if you're interested in this, I will talk more about this. Let's see. And in terms of actual physical dimensions, it's almost identical to Loch Ness. Loch Ness is about 23 miles long and about 1.5 miles wide. Lake Pepin is 22 miles long and about 2 miles wide. Both are surrounded by the beautiful hills. Even though Loch Ness is much deeper than Lake Pepin, I always state that if you were dropped out of an airplane into one or the other, you wouldn't know which one you were in right away. So saying that basically you could, if somebody dropped you into the lake, either lake, you couldn't tell which one was which. So again, here's where we kind of look at debunking this. It says some people believe Pepie could be a sturgeon, a long prehistoric looking fish that can live for as long as 100 years and weigh up to 200 pounds. But others, like Nelson, believe there's a sea monster trapped in the inland. All right, so I don't want to keep going on about this. It's just going to go on and on and on. Let's look at one last one. So this is in Utah. I've actually never heard of this one, but as we go, we kind of, hopefully everybody's kind of learning about different things. It says the legendary tale of Brigham Young and the Bear Lake Monster. It says this Desert News broke the story of locals claiming to see the monster in 1868, but what has happened since then? So if you're following these, it seems like these creatures date back to the late 1800s or earlier. The reports do. Basically there could be more reports further back that we just are not on here. So that's pretty interesting, because back then people thought they were like monsters and whatever else. They thought that these things that they're seeing were monsters. They could be misidentifications too, just FYI. I'm not saying that these are 100% real. Again, you have to make up your own mind. You have to take all this with a grain of salt. These are just people's accounts. It's kind of like me and Bigfoot. I've seen plenty of Bigfoots, but I don't expect anybody to believe until they've had an encounter of their own. And you have to have an encounter where you can say that couldn't be anything but a Bigfoot or a lake monster. I've never seen a lake monster. I would love to. I'd love to go check this out and spend like months researching areas and moving around the lake and trying to document these things. But just like Bigfoots, I think they're just really hard to catch. All right, so the Bear Lake Monster made a splash when the desert Deseret News in 1868 published correspondence Joseph Rich's account of the serpent-like monsters, and he said he had seen multiple that locals had spotted in Bear Lake, which straddles the border of Utah and Idaho. Interesting. I'm going to be pinning all of these on my Bigfoot map. Okay. All lakes, caves, and dens have their legends and history, Rich wrote, before listing second-hand stories of individuals who claim to have seen the monsters. One account reads, hold on one second, let me get just a sip of water. I don't know why my mouth is so dry today. Okay, so it says about 3 weeks ago, likely early July of 1868, Mr. S.M. Johnson, who lives on the east side of the lake at a place called South Eden, about halfway north along the Utah side of the lake, was going around the valley settlement 6 miles to the south. Excuse me. 6 miles to the south of the place when he went about halfway. He saw something in the lake. This is really written really strangely, which at the time he thought to be a drowned person. The road being some distance from the water's edge, he rode to the beach. As the waves were running pretty high, he thought it would soon wash ashore. In a few minutes or two, in a few minutes, 2 or 3 feet of some kind of animal that he had never seen before was raised out of the water. So it says stories of the Bear Lake Monster were located over the next several years. Reminiscence of the Loch Ness Monster, disputes broke out in local newspapers, and the public became divided on whether or not the monster was real. As locals continued to share the legends, Brigham Young, the second president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, took interest in it. The news published an article titled "President Young's Trip North" that described the church's leaders speaking with locals who firmly believed in the tale. The church leaders reportedly believed that the locals saw something remarkable, and that the accounts were certainly of a fish, but they did not rapidly accept the folklore tale as true. So essentially, they believed what the people were saying, but they didn't really believe it was real. So that's what they're saying. The local community's interest in the Bear Lake Monster skyrocketed over time. In a personal correspondence, Young suggested perhaps sending a rope to the locals to see if they could capture what they were claiming to see. You gonna catch it with a rope? I don't think so. Church leaders were not the only ones to take an interest in Bear Lake Monster. For a time, several people in Utah Territory went to Bear Lake to see if this folk tale had any merit. They wanted to see if it was true. Okay. So essentially, there's been stories about this in the news. There's been shows about this, and there's been several monster hunters that have gone and looked for this thing, cryptid hunters that have gone to look for this thing. Let me stop sharing my screen. So again, are these real? I don't know. I can't say yes or no. I'd have to do a lot more research into them to really say that they're real or not. Being a paranormal researcher, we research everything. If somebody brings something to our attention, we go and check it out. Be it a Bigfoot, a ghost, a haunted location, whatever, UFO sighting, river monster sighting, lake monster sighting, we go and check this stuff out. But anyways, that's basically, we're going to be doing like all kinds of expeditions. Like I said yesterday on the Bigfoot only podcast, we're going to be doing different expeditions. We got other plans too. We're working on some stuff with some other people. And so, yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of Bigfoot stuff and other cryptid stuff coming in the future here. We're going to be doing expeditions to go look for these things, and spending a little bit more time on cryptids than ghosts. So anyways, at least while it's cool out, if you're interested in going on an expedition, they'll be posted to our website and probably to our social media pages coming very soon. We're going to be doing an event with a friend that will also be posted probably on Facebook soon. That's going to be down in San Antonio. If you're interested in going, let us know. I don't know what the cost is yet, but it's a whole fun event where you get to come in and listen to people talk. And basically you can meet us and other people that research Bigfoot and other cryptids and stuff like that. So anyways, we're going to be doing a lot of that stuff this year. So, all right, guys, this is getting a little long. We appreciate you. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button while you're on there. If you like the video, that really helps us to tell YouTube, hey, yeah, this is interesting. We want to show more people this. It really helps us get our name out there. And also, if you'll do me a favor, if you're on a YouTube channel, or even if you're on one of our podcast platforms that we're on, please share this podcast with others if you find it interesting. It really helps us, again, to get new listeners. And we thank you to everybody who's been doing that. We've been getting a lot of new listeners lately, a lot of new viewers on our YouTube channel. So, and right now it's basically ad free. So any ads you see is all YouTube. We're not posting any ads on our YouTube channel. We want to grow our channel and not have people have to watch ads. So, all right, guys, thank you again. And we will catch you on the next one.